The first story, The Treasure That Cannot Be Lost. Once upon a time, there was a man named Douay, renowned as a wealthy and generous merchant. Anyone who sought help from him never left empty-handed. However, there were times when people requested items he deeply cherished. In those moments, Douay would frown, clench his fists, and say, "No. This cannot be lost." Yet, he would still give the precious item to someone who needed it more. His words and actions puzzled many around him. One day, a frail old woman with a hunched back and a cane shuffled to Douay's house. She said, "I am old and weak, without even a sturdy cane to rely on. I heard you have a staff made of rare wood. This type of wood is warm in winter, cool in summer, resistant to water, and impervious to fire. I don't have long to live, but I wish for that staff to lean on as I move around. Would you be willing to give it to me?" Douay was slightly surprised, but gently replied, "Madam, it is true that I have such a staff, but it's not as miraculous as you say. The staff could decay if submerged in water for too long and would turn to ash if burned. I wouldn't hesitate to give it to you, but it is an important gift from the magistrate, and I dare not go against his wishes." The old woman, undeterred by Douay's words, continued to plead for the staff, saying, "If I cannot have that staff, I would rather die. It is my last wish in this life." Hearing this, Douay frowned, clenched his fists, and repeated, "No. This cannot be lost." But then, he went inside and brought the precious staff to give to the old woman. Upon receiving it, she was overjoyed and thanked him profusely. Before leaving, she asked, "Sir, you said this cannot be lost, yet you still gave it to me. What do you mean by that?" Douay respectfully replied, "Madam, my house holds many treasures, all of which I can give to others if they need them more than I do. But there is one thing I value above all else, my compassion. If I were to hoard my possessions and refuse to help others, I would lose my compassion. I would rather part with my treasures than lose my good heart." Hearing this, the old woman smiled benevolently and said, "Well said. Well said. In these troubled times, it is heartening to see someone with such compassion. This staff is precious not because it was given by the magistrate, but because your compassion has made it priceless. Compassion can warm people in the coldest winters, soothe them in the hottest summers, and transcend all boundaries of time and space. A person who keeps their compassion cannot be shaken by anything." After saying this, the old woman transformed into a thin wisp of cloud and vanished into the air. Only then did Douay realize that she was an immortal in disguise, testing his heart. From that day forward, Douay devoted himself to practicing kindness, living a simple life, and giving back to others. Many years later, he passed away peacefully, his face radiant as if he were merely asleep. It is said that his soul ascended and appeared in the form of a dignified sage, serene and otherworldly. The story of Douay's staff has been passed down through generations as a testament to the power of compassion. In modern life, we sometimes lose faith in fairness when witnessing the injustices happening around us. However, there is an ancient belief that heaven has eyes, that those who live virtuously will be blessed, and that every action bears its deserved consequence. These stories are not merely memories of the past, but eternal messages reminding us that justice always exists. No matter how the world changes, the laws of the universe remain unchanged. Join me as we explore and reflect on each story to uncover valuable life lessons. The second story, The Bond Between Doctor and Patient. The relationship between doctor and patient has long been considered one driven by fate. As the ancients said, it takes 10 lifetimes of cultivation to share the same boat, and the meeting of a doctor and patient is not coincidental but a connection spanning past and present lives. In a small village in Shandong, the grandfather of a friend of mine was a renowned physician known for his exceptional medical skills and compassionate heart. At the time, the villagers were often harassed by a group of bandits. These bandits would plunder, destroy crops, and sometimes steal the villagers' horses, branding them with red-hot iron to claim ownership. One day, the leader of the bandits was gravely injured. With no other option, he sought treatment from my friend's grandfather. Despite knowing the man was the bandit leader, the grandfather treated him on one condition: once healed, he must stop raiding the village. The leader agreed, and true to his word, the bandits no longer troubled the village. Moreover, whenever they passed through, they left some food at the doctor's doorstep as a gesture of gratitude. This story illustrates the importance of gratitude. However, in modern times, the relationship between doctors and patients has taken a negative turn. When I lived in the United States, a renowned local doctor once told me he constantly worried about being sued by his patients, despite working with utmost care. A friend of his, a top gynecologist, faced 9 lawsuits in a single year. Doctors today not only treat illnesses, but also contend with legal and financial pressures. Patients, on the other hand, often approach treatment with suspicion, viewing it as a transactional exchange. This has led to complex and sometimes unnecessary tests, designed more to protect doctors than to benefit patients. Such dynamics have strained the doctor-patient relationship, creating a vicious cycle that increases healthcare costs and erodes mutual trust. From a Buddhist perspective, the doctor-patient relationship is not merely a present-day issue but also rooted in karma from past lives. A doctor may heal not only to cultivate virtue but also to repay karmic debts and end past bonds with patients. Likewise, a patient suffering through illness may be a way to resolve their own karmic burdens. If a doctor errs, such as performing a wrong surgery or exploiting patients for profit, they accumulate negative karma and will face consequences in future lives. Similarly, a patient who is saved but fails to express gratitude, instead finding fault, creates further difficulties for themselves. It is hoped that modern society can rediscover the kindness and sincerity of earlier times. Only then can the doctor-patient relationship return to its true meaning, a beautiful bond of fate, not only in this life but also in those to come. The third story, karma spares no one. Throughout history, virtuous rulers who revered divine teachings and the Buddhist faith brought peace and prosperity to their nations. Conversely, those who disregarded karma, desecrated sacred beliefs, and destroyed Buddhism often met tragic fates, plunging their kingdoms into chaos and decline. Great emperors such as Emperor Wen of Han, Emperor Taizong of Tang, and Emperor Kangxi honored Buddhism, laying moral foundations for their realms and ushering in renowned golden eras like the reign of Wan and Jing, the Jingguan reign, and the prosperity of Kangxi and Qianlong. These periods not only ensured peace and stability but also fostered cultural and religious flourishing. For emperors who destroyed Buddhism and their tragic downfalls: Emperor Taiwu of Northern Wei, Tuoba Tao. In 446, Emperor Taiwu issued a decree to eradicate Buddhism under the influence of Minister Cui Hao. Temples were demolished, scriptures burned, statues destroyed, and monks either killed or forced to renounce their vows. A Taoist priest warned Cui Hao of a curse that would bring calamity upon his family, but Cui ignored it. Soon after, Cui and his entire clan were executed. 2 years later, Emperor Taiwu was assassinated by an eunuch at the age of 45, and his sons met untimely and violent deaths. His successor, Emperor Wenqing, restored Buddhism, building grand projects like the Yungang Grottos to lead the kingdom out of its turmoil. Emperor Wu of Northern Zhou, Yuan Yong. After unifying northern China in 577, Emperor Wu of Northern Zhou banned Buddhism, destroying temples, burning scriptures, and forcing monks to return to secular life. Shortly afterward, he developed a debilitating disease, suffering from painful ulcers all over his body. He died in agony at the age of 36. Not long after, the northern Zhou dynasty collapsed. Emperor Wuzong of Tang, Liyan. In 845, Emperor Wuzong issued a decree to destroy over 4,600 Buddhist temples, forcing hundreds of thousands of monks and nuns to return to lay life. He claimed Buddhism was a financial burden, but soon he contracted a mysterious illness. Historical records describe his head swelling grotesquely, his body covered in boils, and constant agonizing pain. He died at 32, and the Tang dynasty fell into disarray shortly thereafter. Emperor Shizong of later Zhou, Chai Rong. In 955, Emperor Shizong ordered the destruction of 3,360 Buddhist temples and had Buddhist statues melted down to mint coins. He personally smashed a Bodhisattva statue in the Great Compassion Temple with a hammer. Just a few years later, he developed a malignant tumor on his chest and died painfully. The later Zhou dynasty collapsed soon after. Whether one believes or not, karma is ever present. Acts of desecration and blasphemy against sacred teachings not only bring misfortune to individuals but also to their nations. Conversely, rulers who revere divine principles often cultivate peace, prosperity, and vibrant cultures. This story serves as a timeless reminder to cherish moral values, respect the divine, and engage in virtuous deeds. By doing so, we can create a better life for ourselves and those around us. The fourth story: what is the good affinity of life? One day, Buddha Shakyamuni and his disciples arrived at the bank of a large river with a swift current, threatening to sweep everything away. The Buddha picked up a large stone from the riverbank and asked, "If I throw this stone into the water, do you think it will sink or float?" The disciples exchanged puzzled glances. The question seemed too obvious. Of course, the stone would sink. However, knowing the Buddha's profound wisdom, they respectfully answered, "Master, the stone will sink." Hearing this, the Buddha sighed gently and said, "Then this stone lacks a good affinity." The disciples were even more perplexed. A stone sinking into water was natural. Why mention a lack of good affinity? The Buddha smiled and began to explain, "Let me tell you a story. There was once a large stone, very heavy, yet when placed in the water, it did not sink. Not only that, but it also crossed the river without getting wet. Do you know why?" The disciples grew even more confused. Unable to understand, they asked the Buddha to clarify. The Buddha calmly explained, "The answer is simple. That stone encountered a good affinity. Its good affinity was a boat. Placed on a large boat, the stone not only avoided sinking but crossed the river safely." He continued, "Human life is just like this. Only when one encounters good affinities can they overcome life's sufferings, do good deeds, become a virtuous person, and achieve a bright future. Without good affinities, one is prone to falter, commit wrongdoings, and become lost in darkness." The Buddha concluded, "The good affinity of a person is meeting an enlightened teacher who guides them on the path of truth, helping them discover the ultimate meaning of life." Hearing this, the disciples were enlightened. To be born as a human is a rare blessing, but to attain true happiness, one must seek and cherish good affinities. Good affinities are not merely meeting kind people, but also being guided by righteous teachings to transcend life's struggles. In this world, finding the truth is challenging, and understanding and living by it is even harder. However, with sincere effort and a heart devoted to seeking the way, one will encounter good affinities, like a stone finding a great boat, effortlessly crossing turbulent waters to reach the shore of peace. The fifth story, disregarding people's lives, kings and officials also face retribution. In ancient times, officials were likened to the parents of the people, entrusted with the responsibility to protect and care for the populace. However, not all officials fulfilled their duties. Many abused their power to oppress the innocent for personal gain, eventually facing swift and just retribution. During the Qing dynasty, a newly appointed official was sent to Jiangsu to replace his predecessor, who had recently passed away from illness. That year, a severe flood devastated the region, leaving the people starving and desperate. The imperial court issued orders to suspend taxes, open grain stores, and send this official, along with 2 deputies, to investigate and provide emergency relief. Instead of helping the people, the official neglected his duties, spending his days drinking and carousing with the 2 deputies. Taking advantage of the chaos, his subordinates embezzled the relief grain, leaving countless families to die of hunger without any aid. Within a short time, the official and his wife both died unexpectedly in their early 40s. This was the karmic retribution for his failure to fulfill his responsibilities, allowing his people to suffer and perish. Von Lam, another Qing dynasty official, served as a Sima in Shanghai, responsible for recruiting laborers and addressing piracy. One day, his patrols apprehended a boat carrying 12 people suspected of being pirates. Although all 12 pleaded their innocence, claiming to be salt merchants, Von Lam ordered them to be brutally tortured. Unable to endure the torture, the 12 falsely confessed to being pirates and were subsequently executed on Von Lam's orders. His superiors, believing he had made a significant contribution, promoted him. However, just 3 days later, Von Lam died suddenly, screaming in terror, claiming to see the vengeful spirits of the 12 men demanding his life. This was immediate retribution for unjustly condemning innocent people. Lu Tang, a greedy official, frequently abused his power to amass wealth, causing the populace to suffer and resent him deeply. When the imperial court sent Inspector Nduk Khan to investigate, instead of holding Lu Tang accountable, Nduk Khan colluded with him to share the illicit gains. Less than 6 months later, Lu Tang died unexpectedly. A few days after, Nduk Khan fell gravely ill and also passed away. A servant in Lu Tang's household, who had momentarily returned to life after dying, recounted seeing both men being punished by the King of Hell in the underworld for their crimes. The King of Hell sent a message to the living: officials who neglect their duty to the people and pursue selfish gain will face severe punishment. The ancients taught, the people are the foundation of the nation. Losing their trust means losing everything. Those entrusted with governing the people who exploit or disregard their lives cannot escape retribution, whether in this life or the next. Officials who dedicate themselves to serving the people and consider them the foundation of their rule not only gain public favor but also cultivate blessings for themselves and their descendants. On the other hand, those who abuse their power to oppress the populace, no matter how high their position, cannot escape the net of divine justice. One who sows the wind will reap the whirlwind. Karma spares no one. The 6th story, abandoning evil and receiving blessings. Long ago, in a peaceful southern village, there lived a merchant named Lam Vin Tang, renowned for his wealth and shrewd business acumen. He owned the largest pork shop in the region, and his reputation extended far and wide. Lam Vin Tang had a son, Lam Jiania, who continued the family business and had 2 chubby, bright grandchildren, his greatest pride. Before passing away from a severe illness, Lam Vin Tang summoned his family to his bedside. He asked them to bring 2 scales he had used to amass his fortune. He said, "Our family's wealth today is thanks to these 2 scales." The small one was hollowed out to reduce 2.5 ounces each time, while the large one had mercury added to the handle to increase weight. I also carry a magnet to adjust the weights if needed. Remember, when I die, never destroy them, for they are the keys to prosperity. After Lam Vin Tang passed away, Lam Jiania took over the pork shop. One day, a poor farmer came to sell a pig weighing over 200 kilograms. Using the large, tampered scale, Jiania cheated the farmer, causing him a significant loss. Devastated, the farmer hanged himself in front of the shop. Witnessing this, Gianneo was horrified and filled with remorse. He realized that dishonesty had caused immense suffering to others. Determined to change, Gianneo destroyed the fraudulent scales and vowed to conduct honest business and treat everyone fairly. Word of his reform spread quickly, and Gianneo's shop became widely trusted. However, misfortune struck. A sudden plague took the lives of both his children, and a few months later, a fire consumed most of his wealth. Overwhelmed by grief, Gianneo felt as if his world was collapsing. Many who had suffered under his father's deceit mocked him, saying his misfortunes were karmic retribution. Unable to bear the anguish, Gianneo went to a temple on a holy day and angrily cried out to the deity, "My father committed evil deeds and prospered. But I abandoned wrongdoing and embraced goodness, only to face endless suffering. Is there no justice in the world?" That night, Gianneo dreamed of being led by two spirits to the presence of the King of Hell. In the underworld's judgment hall, the King of Hell sternly addressed him, "You blame heaven and earth for being unjust, but today I will show you the truth of karma." The King of Hell pointed to a room in the west, where Gianneo saw his father, Lam Vinh Tang, undergoing horrific punishment. His body was pierced and hooked, his tongue impaled, as he hung in unbearable pain. The King of Hell explained, "Your father caused immense suffering with his deceitful actions. After his death, he faced severe punishment in the underworld. As for you, because you turned away from evil and embraced righteousness, the heavens reclaimed your ill-gotten wealth and took your children to transform them into stars of wealth and fortune for your future. If you continue your virtuous path, your descendants will flourish, and your family business will thrive again." Awakening drenched in sweat, Gianneo recounted his dream to his mother and wife. 3 years later, his wife gave birth to a bright and handsome son. Gianneo continued his honest trade, and his business grew stronger than ever, surpassing the success of his grandfather's era. Karma is a law of heaven and earth. Though retribution may be delayed, it never misses anyone. The only way to change one's destiny is to live virtuously, accumulate good deeds, and maintain a righteous heart. The seventh story, goodness will be rewarded. Long ago, in a small village nestled between mountains and forests, there lived an elderly couple, Nguyen Phuc and Nguyen Han. Although they were poor, their lives were always filled with joy and optimism. They were well known for their kindness and willingness to help others without expecting anything in return. One year, as the Lunar New Year approached, the couple realized they had nothing to celebrate with. Nguyen Phuc said to his wife, "I'll go carry firewood to the market and sell it to earn a little money for the new year." The next day, Nguyen Phuc went to the market, but he couldn't sell even a single bundle of firewood all day. By evening, a hat seller approached him and said, "Sir, my house needs firewood for warmth. I don't have money, but I can trade these hats for your firewood." Nguyen Phuc thought to himself, "We don't need hats, but this man needs firewood to survive the cold winter. Helping him is also a good deed." So, he agreed to exchange the firewood for the hats. On his way home, Nguyen Phuc passed by a temple where statues of deities were covered in snow. Seeing this, he felt moved and thought, the gods also need protection from the cold. He decided to place the hats on the heads of each statue. When he ran out of hats, he even removed his own scarf and placed it on the final statue. After finishing, he returned home, empty-handed but filled with a sense of joy. When he got home, Nguyen Han smiled and comforted him, "It's okay, dear. We may not have money to celebrate the new year, but we have our health and each other. Doing good deeds fills our hearts, and that's enough." That night, as the couple was about to go to bed, there was a knock on the door. Nguyen Phuc opened it, but there was no one there, only a tray full of delicious food, including cakes, fruits, and meat, placed in front of their doorstep. The couple was astonished, not knowing who had brought it. Suddenly, a brilliant light appeared in the sky, and the very gods whom. The eighth story, leaving theft behind, building a bridge of virtue. Once upon a time, there was a poor young man who lived by stealing. His family consisted of only his mother and himself, and they lived in constant struggle, always lacking something, sometimes food, sometimes warmth. One day, on the anniversary of his father's death, his mother shared stories about the lives of his grandfather and father. "Our family has been in the business of stealing for 3 generations. My father stole every night, earning quite a bit of money, but he passed away penniless. Your father followed in his footsteps, always lurking in the shadows, yet left nothing behind but poverty. And now, you continue this trade. Almost 20 years have passed, and you're nearly 40, yet you still can't marry." Reflecting on the lives of his family, the young man felt disheartened. One night, while planning to steal a pig's trough from a scholar's house, he could not find the right moment, as the scholar kept reading books. Suddenly, he heard the scholar speak aloud, "A family that does good deeds accumulates blessings, while a family that does evil will face misfortune." The young man was struck by the words. Could it be that our family's life of theft has cursed us with misfortune for generations? The next morning, he decided to abandon his life of crime and took an axe into the forest to chop firewood and sell it. Though the work was difficult and the pay was small, he felt at peace with himself. However, the negative reputation from his family's criminal past still caused people to look down on him, and he grew saddened. "I need to do something truly virtuous to erase my family's past." One day, a heavy rainstorm caused the river to flood, and hundreds of people were unable to cross. The young man saw this and had an idea. "I will build a bridge to help the people." He spoke to his mother, who encouraged him, and from then on, he worked tirelessly, cutting down trees, hauling wood, and building the bridge, often forgetting to eat or sleep. One day, exhausted from overwork, he fainted while working on the bridge. A passing military official noticed the crowd praising his virtuous work and stopped to help. After the young man regained consciousness, the official asked him about his actions and was deeply moved by his sincerity. The official shared his own story. "My father was once a high-ranking official who oppressed the common people for profit. Now, I am cursed. At the age of 40, I have no children to carry on the family name. I want to do good to atone for my past sins. If you agree, I will join you in building this bridge." The young man agreed joyfully, and from then on, the two became sworn brothers, working together to finish the bridge, which spanned over 200 meters. When the bridge was completed, the people were overjoyed and named it the Bridge of Virtue. However, during the celebration, a sudden gust of wind swept the young man away. Everyone mourned, believing he had perished for his good deeds. In fact, the gust of wind was the wind god, sent by the Jade Emperor to reward the young man. The wind god carried him to a cave filled with gold and silver and said, "Take this wealth and live a prosperous life." The young man took only what he needed, and the wind god returned him to his home. When he returned, he invited his mother and the military official and his family to live with him. He soon married and built a happy, prosperous life. From a poor thief, he had transformed into a wealthy and honorable man through his virtue and determination to do good. This story teaches us that when one changes their heart, cultivates virtue, and seeks redemption, life will transform. A good heart not only helps others, but also brings happiness and blessings to oneself. The ninth story, doing good to save lives, receiving great blessings. In the northwest of Honshu County, Guangxi, there is a mountain named Mount Nuang Nuang, where the Tu-Cam Temple is located. This temple is dedicated to a revered figure known as Nuang Nuang, a sacred goddess believed to be a divine immortal. The legend dates back to the Tang Dynasty and a village in the northern part of Tan Hon Chau, where a girl named Tran Thap Nuong was born into a poor family. Before her birth, her mother dreamed of the Bodhisattva granting her a child. True to the dream, from a young age, Tran Thap Nuong had a special connection with Buddhism, always showing reverence for the Buddha and living harmoniously, loving everyone around her. She became known for her compassion and kindness, often saving money to donate towards building temples. In addition, Tran Thap Nuong was skilled in medicine, offering free treatment to the poor. In the 8th year of the Tang dynasty's Trin Quan reign, 634 AD, when Tran Thap Nuong was in her early 30s, she was on her way home when she saw a man holding a golden-scaled fish, still alive. Sensing that this fish was no ordinary creature, she immediately bought it and took it home. After a night of care, she released the fish back into the river. Before swimming away, the fish leapt several times out of the water as if to thank her for saving its life. Not long after, a man dressed in white visited her and said, "A great disaster is about to befall this village. You must leave immediately and take everyone up to Mount Bat Lin to escape the calamity." Tran Thap Nuong immediately recognized that the man in white was the fish she had saved. She hurriedly warned everyone in the village, knocking on doors and urging them to leave. Some believed her, but others did not. Those who believed her followed her up to Mount Bat Lin. Just as they reached the summit, a loud noise erupted. When they looked back, the entire village had been submerged, turned into a large lake that engulfed all the houses. Those who had ignored her warning perished in the flood. The villagers believed that the fish she had saved was actually the Dragon King in disguise, coming to repay her for saving its life. The lake was then named Long Tri, Dragon Pond, in memory of this event. After the disaster, Tran Thap Nuong became a symbol of kindness and selflessness, having saved so many lives. The villagers built a temple on Mount Bat Lin to honor her, and she was revered as Nuong Nuong. From then on, Mount Bat Lin was known as Mount Nuong Nuong. Tran Thap Nuong was believed to have attained immortality, frequently appearing in spirit to help those in need. During the Song dynasty's Shaoxing reign, the emperor officially conferred the title of Tu Kim Mu, Temple of Compassion, to the temple in her honor, recognizing her immense virtue and the great deeds she had done in saving lives. The 10th story, committing adultery and destroying one's destiny. Mr. Lin Zan, a famous spiritual master in Taiwan, was known as an expert in fortune-telling with the remarkable ability to predict events accurately. After converting to Buddhism, he spent many years practicing and gained extraordinary abilities, while witnessing numerous heartbreaking stories of karma, particularly the severe consequences of committing adultery. Lin Zan once shared an account of his supernatural abilities. A man named Noi Tan Bin asked him, "How many coins do I have in my hand?" Without hesitation, Lin Zan immediately responded, 24 coins. When Noi counted, he was astonished to find that the number was exactly correct. From that moment on, Noi fully believed in Lin Zan's abilities and decided to follow Buddhism, chanting sutras and reciting the Buddha's name daily. However, Lin Zan's predictions were not always correct, as the results were often influenced by the moral behavior of the people involved. One notable case was about a high-ranking official named Mr. Deng. He came to Lin Zan seeking advice on whether he would be promoted to the position of director. Lin Zan predicted that he would be appointed. But when the results were announced, another person was chosen. Mr. Deng, feeling disappointed, confronted Lin Zan. "You said I would be promoted. What happened?" Lin Zan was speechless, unsure of how to explain the discrepancy. At that moment, the God of Blessings, who frequently guided Lin Zan, appeared and wrote a single word, adultery. Confused, Lin Zan asked, "Where did Mr. Deng commit adultery?" The god of blessings revealed that Mr. Dang had once spied on a young girl bathing. Initially, Mr. Dang denied it, but after reflecting on the incident, he lowered his head and admitted to the act. The girl had forgotten to pull the curtain, and instead of walking away, Mr. Dang deliberately looked, even using binoculars. Although no physical act of adultery occurred, the corrupt thoughts had already arisen in his heart. According to the god of blessings, even a mere thought of adultery could be enough to cause one to lose their blessings. Another story involved Lu Ko, a famous lieutenant general. He had been predicted to achieve the rank of general by the age of 53. However, by the time he was 56, he was still only a lieutenant general. When he visited Lin Zan for advice, Lu Ko confessed that he had previously fallen into the temptation of a brothel, which had delayed his career by 2 years. But this was not the main cause. The god of blessings revealed that for 8 years, Lu Ko had maintained an illicit relationship with a subordinate named Mac Thursday. This affair not only damaged his reputation but also caused his destiny to be disrupted. The god of blessings warned that not only would Lu Ko suffer, but his only son would face severe consequences as well. Indeed, not long after, Lu Ko's son was involved in a fatal accident. A heartbreaking story involved Vinh Mao, the director of a large metal company. In his youth, Vinh Mao had been predicted to become a great wealthy businessman after 15 years. However, when the time came, he went bankrupt and had to live in exile. When he met Lin Zan, he questioned, "You once told me I would succeed, but now I have lost everything. Why is this happening?" Lin Zan consulted the god of blessings and was told that Vinh Mao had committed 2 major sins. He had seduced a nun and caused 2 abortions. The god of blessings explained that seducing a religious person was the gravest sin, leading to the loss of all blessings, which resulted in Vinh Mao's current suffering. Lin Zan advised Vinh Mao to repent and give up his indulgence in adultery, to do more good deeds, and to encourage others to avoid breaking moral codes. Upon hearing this, Vinh Mao immediately vowed to repent and wrote a public declaration before heaven and earth, promising to change his ways and dedicate himself to good deeds. Through these stories, Lin Zan emphasized, adultery is the foremost sin among all evils. Those who commit adultery not only lose their blessings but also suffer great retribution. They will lose their reputation, health, career, and even their descendants will be affected. Therefore, the only way to change one's fate and attain true happiness is to live honestly, maintain a pure heart, and perform good deeds to accumulate virtue. Had placed hats on the statues of appeared before him. They smiled and said, "Dear good-hearted couple, this is a gift from us to thank you for your kindness. We wish you a peaceful and warm new year." The couple, deeply moved, knelt to express their gratitude. They now understood that their kindness and goodness had brought them this reward. Goodness brings blessings is not just an old saying but a profound lesson in life. Even in the face of hardship, a kind-hearted person will always receive good things in return. Doing good deeds not only helps others but also brings blessings upon oneself. No matter how tough life may be, always keep a pure heart, do good deeds, and remember that karma will always return. Live well, and life will not disappoint you. Story 11: The Good Heart and the Awakening of Humanity. Once upon a time, there was a legend that in ancient times, humans lived in prosperity and abundance, especially with a high yield of grains. The barley back then was as large as a tree trunk. However, over time, human greed gradually grew, and the good heart became increasingly rare. Seeing this, heaven decided to awaken humanity by sending gods to the world, taking on different forms to advise and guide people. One year, during a season of crop scarcity, when the barley fields were still lush and green, an old beggar appeared in a village. He was thin and ragged, holding a cane in one hand and a broken bowl in the other, stumbling from house to house, asking for food, but no one gave him anything. Despite his misery, he did not complain and continued on to the next village. At one household, he encountered a large dog that seemed very intelligent. When the dog saw the old man, it immediately started barking loudly, as if trying to call its master for help. The homeowner initially came out, but upon seeing the old man, he merely glanced at him and turned away without any sympathy. The dog barked louder, running around its owner's feet as if pleading, but the man coldly chased the beggar away. The old man, undeterred, said, "I've been hungry for many days, and I would be grateful for just a scrap of leftover food." If humans lose their good heart, there will come a time when they regret it, but it will be too late. After speaking, the old man walked toward a nearby barley field. The homeowner and some curious onlookers followed him. The old man placed his hand on a stalk of barley and gently stroked it from the root to the tip. Immediately, the barley in the field shrank, with the grains becoming smaller as they grew taller. The people watching were amazed, and some began to feel guilty, but the homeowner still did not grasp the deeper meaning. He thought, if the barley here is ruined, I still have other fields, and my reserves will be enough to eat. The dog, seemingly understanding the gravity of the situation, knelt before the old man, barking loudly as if pleading. Tears streamed down its face as it bowed its head and pressed its forehead to the ground, as though praying. Moved by the dog's sincerity, the old man sighed, released the barley stalk, and silently left. From that day forward, the barley shrank, and humanity began to face more hardships, with famine occurring frequently. However, the story of the old man and the dog became a great lesson. People remembered the dog's loyalty and good heart, and so, during every new year or harvest season, the villagers would make delicious barley buns and save a portion for the dogs as a ritual of gratitude. The good heart is the root of being human. When the good heart disappears, disaster will begin. This story serves as a reminder: only when people maintain their morality, good heart, and traditional ethics can the world be peaceful and harmonious. As the ancients once said, a person with virtue ensures the peace of society. When heaven follows the way, the sun and moon are clear. Story 12: The Consequences of Actions After Zhang Liang's Death. Zhang Liang and Qin Ping were two famous statesmen during the Han Dynasty, playing key roles in helping Liu Bang establish the Western Han Dynasty. Both were intelligent and skilled in strategies, but their ruthless actions led to severe consequences for their descendants. The Western Han Dynasty and the roles of the two statesmen. The Western Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 25 CE, had its capital at Chang'an, now Xi'an. Qin Ping once admitted, "I am a cunning man, full of schemes and plans." However, he also pessimistically predicted, "In my lifetime, I have done many bad deeds, and my descendants will certainly not be fortunate." Indeed, his prediction came true, and during his grandchildren's time, their family wealth was confiscated. Zhang Liang, although more heroic, also did not escape the consequences of his actions. In his youth, he had conspired with a great warrior to assassinate Emperor Qin Shi Huang at the Balang sandbar to avenge his father. Although the plot failed, this action left a deep mark in history. Later, he devoted himself to helping Liu Bang defeat the Qin dynasty and Xiongnu, but his decisions were often excessively cruel. Zhang Liang's ruthless strategies. Proposal to annihilate the entire Qin army. When Liu Bang advanced to Na Pass, now in Shaanxi, the Qin forces resisted stubbornly. Zhang Liang proposed a plan not to attack directly but to weaken the Qin army by besieging them and cutting off their food supplies. When the Qin army collapsed, the prisoners and wounded soldiers begged for mercy, but Zhang Liang advised Liu Bang not to spare their lives, saying that those who surrendered were not truly loyal. Following Zhang Liang's advice, the Han forces executed a brutal massacre, leaving countless dead bodies scattered across the battlefield, convincing Liu Bang not to spare Xiang Yu. During the Han-Xiang conflict, Xiang Yu wanted to retreat to Jiangdong and divide the empire with Liu Bang. Zhang Liang advised, letting Xiang Yu go is like letting a tiger back into the forest. My lord, you must take advantage of the victory and eliminate this potential threat. Ultimately, Liu Bang decided to pursue and kill Xiang Yu, leading to the tragic death of the hero of Chu. Although both Zhang Liang and Chen Ping were loyal in helping Liu Bang build a great empire, their excessive cruelty sowed bad karma for their descendants. Zhang Liang's son was stripped of his title just 10 years after his death. None of his descendants achieved any significant fame. Chen Ping's family faced a similar fate. His descendants had their wealth confiscated and his lineage fell into ruin. The law of cause and effect spares no one, whether they are famous statesmen or ordinary people. Evil deeds that cause suffering to others will result in serious consequences for oneself and future generations. The story of Zhang Liang and Chen Ping serves as a warning. Good or evil deeds will eventually bear fruit, whether early or late. Live with kindness, avoid causing harm to others, and leave blessings for your descendants. This is not only a moral lesson but also a timeless truth of cause and effect. Story 13: The Consequences of Insulting the Buddha and the Moral Lessons for Modern Society. Since ancient times, there have been people who did not believe in the Buddha and, out of ignorance, spoke disrespectfully and insulted the teachings of Buddhism. However, the law of cause and effect, where good and evil deeds bring corresponding rewards or punishments, always exists, and those who insult the Buddha not only harm others but also harm themselves. When the Buddha was in the city of Shravasti, he often gave sermons at the Jita Grove to enlightened beings. At that time, there was a woman named Ma Nakai Nu, an outsider who carried a heavy karmic burden and had never been touched by the Buddha's teachings. She, out of jealousy and greed, wanted to discredit the Buddha in order to attract followers to her own teacher. One day, she hid a wooden bowl under her robe and went to the Jita Grove. In front of everyone, she pointed at the Buddha and loudly accused him, saying, "This Buddha made me pregnant." Her accusation caused confusion among the assembly. Those who lacked firm faith in the Buddha's teachings began to waver, but there were still some wise ones who understood that an enlightened being like the Buddha could never commit an act that would tarnish his purity. At that moment, the Deva Sakrit transformed into a white rat and silently climbed up Ma Nakai Nu's body, biting through the string that held the wooden bowl. The bowl fell to the ground with a thud, exposing the truth. The entire assembly was shocked, and those who had once doubted immediately knelt down and repented. As the truth was revealed, the ground beneath Ma Nakai Nu's feet trembled and cracked open. She fell into the Avicii hell right before everyone's eyes. This event became a vivid testament to the law of cause and effect, showing that those who insult the Buddha and the Dharma will face severe consequences. Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and ancestor worship have formed the ethical foundation of the Vietnamese people for thousands of years. Thanks to this cultural foundation, our country has overcome countless invasions and preserved its national identity against attempts to assimilate or destroy its culture. However, nowadays, many people no longer believe in cause and effect or traditional morals. They chase after materialism, fame, and profit, seeing them as the only goals of life. This mindset unintentionally undermines moral values, leading to social problems such as violence, theft, fraud, and family discord. As the old saying goes, it is better to believe that there is a cause and effect than to believe that there isn't. This saying reminds us that, even if we don't fully believe in the Buddha or the law of karma, we should live morally and avoid doing evil. Those who are mindful, maintain their ethical standards, and avoid indulgence will not only avoid negative consequences in this life, but also accumulate merit for the next life. On the other hand, those who insult the Buddha, commit evil deeds, and harm others will surely pay the price. The consequences may come in many forms: illness, accidents, family separation, or even spiritual suffering before death. Insulting the Buddha and committing evil actions not only harms others, but also harms oneself. Society can only develop sustainably when individuals uphold morality, believe in cause and effect, live virtuously, and are willing to repent when they do wrong. Only then will the good values from traditional culture truly be preserved, becoming the torch that lights the path to the development of the nation. Story 14. To know how good or bad a person's heart is, look at these 2 points. In a complex society, distinguishing between a good and bad person is not always easy. However, there are 2 key factors you can observe to understand someone's true nature. Gratitude. Thank you is a simple phrase, but not everyone can express it sincerely. A truly good person will be grateful to those who help them, even for the smallest act of kindness. On the other hand, in the rush of daily life, many people forget gratitude and even repay kindness with ingratitude. They receive help, but when others are in need, they remain indifferent or even turn away. The story of 2 companions. There was a man who fell into the mud while walking along the road. A passerby helped him up and cleaned the mud off him. But the next day, when the person who had helped him fell into trouble, the man did nothing but stand and watch. A good person would never behave this way. They would remember the help they received and repay it, even in small ways. When choosing companions or business partners, look for those who value you and are ready to reciprocate kindness. Only then will the relationship be meaningful and enduring. Attitude toward benefit. There is a saying, a person's true face only shows when they face benefits. When benefits appear, many people are willing to sacrifice their morals and break relationships to achieve their goals. Some will even produce low-quality goods, deceive customers, and prioritize short-term profits. On the other hand, there are those who remain steadfast, placing quality and value above all else. They understand that long-term benefits come from doing things the right way, rather than through deceitful tricks. The example of 2 business owners. One owner produces poor-quality goods for profit, hoping to dominate the market quickly, but eventually loses customers. The other prioritizes product quality. Even though their development is slower, they build long-term trust from customers. A person's attitude toward benefits reflects their vision and morals. A kind person not only seeks their own benefit but also considers the impact on others and society. Those who lack gratitude and only chase after benefits tend to blame others and complain when things go wrong. Complaining is deceiving oneself. People who frequently complain often avoid facing their failures or mistakes. They shirk responsibility, blaming others or circumstances, and remain trapped in a cycle of misery. The incompetent often complain. The more they complain, the poorer they become, both in wealth and spirit. The poorer they are, the more they like to complain and justify themselves. Instead of blaming life, focus on improving yourself. Letting go of all complaints will help you find joy and peace in life. Life is a long journey, so don't let yourself get caught up in the cycle of complaining or trivial benefits. Live with gratitude, prioritize long-term values, and always strive to improve yourself. Only then will you find true happiness. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.